From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Yeah, baby. We're giving balm, free balm today. Zero charge for it. Hello, my name is Sven Erlandson. I am your host of the Badass Counseling Show. And wherever you are tuning in from, be it Birmingham or Beijing, from the Housatonic down to Houston, and all points across Canada, we love our Canadian friends. I am Sven Erlandson, as I said, and I'm joined in studio by KC over in the booth, our brilliant creative mind, and right next to me is Rob the Rocket, the master of all things all. Rob, how are you today, young man?
I'm good. Usually when I hear somebody say this is free, I say you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
But
that's
in
true.
this case,
no, it's super true.
We're doing a lot of good, and so there's a great value here despite the low price tag.
Well, the question really is to me is, would I listen to me if I didn't have to?
Certainly you would.
I don't know if I would. But today we have business, Rob, do we not?
We do. We need to get to work, as you would say.
And yes, let's get to work. And in that vein, we actually have a couple today for you people, and we're taking them separately, and we're doing it within one show. So rather than doing two guests who don't know each other, we're getting two guests who do know each other, and I'm going to assume there is a problem. Rob, tell us what the problem is and who we are getting first.
All right. First, we have Peter. And Peter wrote in and said, I'm struggling with and working on trusting that when I say anything, it's not going to blow up into a big fight. I have struggled with the truth for a long time. I feel like I'm doing better, but I don't like how every time an issue comes up, my heart races and I freeze. I want our marriage to be so much more.
Peter, how are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Terrific. Good to have you on the show. So let me ask you, first of all, you're struggling, you're working on trusting and opening up and sharing your truth and so on and so forth. I just want to get it out of the way. Is there any sort of like trauma in you guys' relationship? Has anybody cheated? Has there been abuse? Anything like that we need to get out of the way?
In the beginning, it was kind of rough. Going back and forth with each other. I've lied even about little things, and she's the type person that, just the truth, whether it hurts or not, just tell me and we can work on from there. And there has been cheating, infidelity.
You cheated on her?
She cheated in the beginning.
Oh, have you ever cheated on her?
I've watched porn and I've...
and what's the and?
And just recently I was messaging another girl. She never responded back, but... Yeah.
So she cheated in the beginning. She actually had a sexual affair or an emotional affair? What did she have?
Both.
Okay. And with the same person or with different people?
With the same person.
Gotcha. How long have you guys been married?
We've been married. It is 12 years. Was our anniversary just past Saturday.
Oh, congratulations. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me ask you then, you put so much in there. I'm working on trusting that when I say anything, it's not going to blow up into a big fight. Why would you saying anything blow up into a big fight?
Well, I guess over the years with us, I guess all growing up too, with somebody asking me, well, the truth about this, the truth about that, I get nervous and I end up lying. And that kind of, she dealt with it and she got fed up with it, on top of just kind of how I treated her in the beginning. I was not a good person with lying, with, I guess, just not being a good man, lying, not putting her first with a lot of things, drinking. And some of our arguments did turn physical, and that has stopped.
And by physical, you mean specifically what?
Putting our hands on each other.
Both ways. Okay. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you say you get nervous, and when it came to the truth growing up, why would you get nervous about telling the truth?
I've tried to dig into that and dig in as much as I can. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to talk and get inside my own head. But I guess I've figured maybe I think it's because of whenever I did get in trouble when I was younger, it was either you're going to get your ass whooped, or you wait for your dad to get home and then you get your ass whooped, or my mom does it. And I guess just growing up, and it's gone into my relationships now, my marriage, that I feel like I'm nervous to say something, and it just kind of makes me freeze up to where I don't want her to get mad at me. I don't want things, her to leave me. I don't want me to look bad.
Yeah, and of those three things, her to get mad at me, her to leave me, or me to look bad, which of those three things is the scariest one to you?
To be without her.
To be without her. If you were without her, what would be the hardest part about that?
Just because of all the good times that we did have.
And so if she were gone, then what? Is it that you fear then I wouldn't have good times with her? Or is it that you fear being alone? Or what ultimately is the fear?
Just being without her. We talked about this a little bit ago, and she was telling me that, you're afraid to be alone. That's what it is. You don't want to be by yourself. And I have thought about that and thought about with her not with me. And I know it would be hard and rough, but I know I could move on with her not by my side. But just the feeling I get when I'm with her, she does bring me happiness, even though a lot of the bad times that we've had, I do feel joy when I'm with her.
Okay, let me ask you this. If you were to rewind the tape all the way back on you'll get your ass whooped and back, so obviously there were spankings, hitting, ass whoopings when you were a child. Okay, so we know that. Just out of curiosity, were there ever spoken messages that you got about yourself when you were getting your ass whooped or during other times? Were there messages that you got? So, for instance, we had someone on the show once who said, I was told I was a dirty slut by my own mother. She would always say that to me. Or I had a guy who, his dad would sit down and do his math homework with him, and Dad would get so frustrated, and the look on Dad's face, Dad never said it, but it basically conveyed, I must be stupid. And so the message I've had my whole life is I'm an idiot. Okay, did you get any either spoken or unspoken messages about who you are when you were growing up?
I have gotten told, you're being a brat. And I guess that must have stuck with me because my parents divorced when I was maybe 7 or 8. And I think there was arguments then and, fighting. I remember having bad dreams about them fighting growing up. And it seemed like as when they separated, our spankings kind of kicked up. And I don't know if it was because of them hurting and then taking out on us or the drinking that they were doing. But yeah, it was mostly you're being a pain in the ass or you're being a brat, get your ass to your room.
Okay, and are those messages, brat is not something a guy normally uses as a word. I'm going to assume that one came from your mom. What about pain in the ass? Were you getting similar messages from both mom and dad?
Yeah, you're being a little shit from both mom and dad. And
I see. And so then what did that young Peter think about himself? What then, as a result of those messages and maybe other messages, what did you grow up believing about yourself?
I guess that I wasn't good enough, that I always tried to be the best at what I was doing. I didn't want them to get mad at me. I didn't want to hear them yell at me.
And when you were trying to do the best at what you're doing, were you able to avoid getting yelled at? Did it work?
Sometimes, yeah. It did to a point. Sometimes I would, being a kid, end up doing something that I probably shouldn't have been doing. Mm-hmm. And then getting yelled at again and getting sent to the room and staying in there, having to stay in there all day. And
wow. Let me ask you this. Do you have children, Peter?
Yes, 4 of them.
Holy cow. You're a fertile guy. God bless your little spermins. Let me ask you this, Peter. How old are your kids?
My stepdaughter is 15. Mm-hmm. I got a 12-year-old daughter. I got an 8-year-old daughter, 9, sorry, mm-hmm. and a 5-year-old son.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this. As you think about your 9-year-old, let's just randomly pick one. As you think about your 9-year-old, okay, is there anything your 9-year-old could possibly do that would justify her believe, it was a girl, right?
Yeah.
That would justify her believing she's no good, she's not good enough, and that she's a bad kid. Is there anything that she could do to possibly justify basically her hating on herself like that?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because she's a good kid. She's.
But even if she were at her worst, is it possible for any child to do something at, let's say, age 9,
all right,
that could possibly justify them being taught they're no good, that could possibly justify them being taught that they're not important or they don't matter or they're not good enough?
No.
Exactly. What the fuck can a fucking 6-year-old do, possibly do, to teach that child they're no good? Or a 12-year-old even. What could they possibly do? Okay, so if you're telling me then that your little 9-year-old girl, good girl, I'm sure, cute, smart, and playful and rambunctious and gets cranky when she hasn't had a nap, or maybe occasionally tries to steal the extra little cookie, or, whatever. Usual kid shit, right? I'm sure she's wonderful. There's no fucking way she's capable of anything that would justify her believing or her being taught to believe that she's no good, right?
All right.
Right. And yet, that's precisely what you were taught, wasn't it?
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you, what is it that you could have possibly done that would have justified you being taught these things, that you're not good enough, that you're no good, that you're bad, whatever the messages were? What is it that you could have possibly done that would have justified you being taught to believe that about yourself?
Nothing. Being a kid.
Exactly. In other words, when you're being called a brat and a little shit and those sorts of things, you believed it. But the problem was, looking back, there's no fucking way it was true. See, what happens in a child's brain is the child's brain, let's say dad's a single parent and he's raising you, all right? And dad has to work a lot. And so daddy's gone a lot. Well, a little boy growing up with daddy that's working a lot, little boy is thinking work is important. He's 5 years old, he's 7 years old. Work is important. My daddy's important. Work is important. But if enough time goes by that the little boy's needs aren't being met or he's feeling neglected by dad, even though dad doesn't intend to, the boy is going to go from work is important to work is important and I'm less important. Now, the truth is, any adult who's, let's say their girlfriend is dating, or their girlfriend is spending a lot of time with her family or with her own friends and less time with me, the boyfriend, I'm going to sort of get the message, well, obviously, I'm less important. I mean, so the kid making that leap of I'm less important is a reasonable leap for the child to make. But then the next leap that the child makes, if his needs continue to not be met, the next leap is the really destructive one. It's where the child goes from work is important to work is important, I'm less important, to I'm less important, I'm not important. And that's what happened with you. I'm not good enough. And whether your parents intended to send the message or not, that was the message you got, even though there wasn't a goddamn thing wrong with you. And the problem is that it imprinted in you and you've been believing it ever since. So let me ask you then, if you were alone, apart from you wouldn't have your dear friend and the woman you love and the joy that you have, you wouldn't have that. But what would go on inside of you if you were alone? Apart from missing her, what would be going on inside of you? What would you be feeling or what would you be thinking?
That I'm not good enough.
Would that happen? Or are you just sort of feeding me the line you think I want to hear? Would your brain start going there?
My brain would start going, look what you did wrong. You messed up. You failed it. You made a commitment to that woman and you messed it up.
Bingo.
All because of lying.
Right. Bingo. In other words, your brain would immediately go to beating yourself up and all those fucking messages, not the least of which is you're not good enough. See, if you were any good, she'd still be here, but she's gone. See, so you're no good. It would be a confirmation, wouldn't it? Of all those messages you got. Exactly. So no wonder you don't want to lose her. And this is what I tell people all the time. The real fear isn't just being alone or isn't just losing the person. It's what happens inside of me when I am alone. And all those voices come roaring up when they just sort of take over and tumble. See, I'm no good. I'm a loser. You fucked it up. Nice going, dumbass. All this stuff. But what that means then is when she's here, all those messages are quieted. So she is basically a living, breathing confirmation of your worth. She is a counter message to all of those messages inside of you. And as long as she's here, and you can say to yourself, well, shit, somebody loves me, then I must be good. That's the logic. And when she leaves, I must be bad. See, nobody loves me. There it is. Okay. And so that's why you're holding on. That's why you're afraid to tell the truth, because you can't bear the thought of losing you. Losing her. Let me ask you this. Is there a power imbalance in your relationship? Who has what percent of the power, just between the two of you? Whether it's the power of money, power of the penis, power of the sex, her sex, whether it's power of fear of being left, power of family, power over the kids, the leverage over them to, you fear what she might or he might say to the kids, whatever it is. What is the distribution of power in your relationship? Who has what percentage of the power?
I'd say she has a good 85 to 90% of it.
85. And that is driven fundamentally by what? Why does she have almost all of the power?
She's always been a straightforward person and more of a, her personality is strong personality.
Yeah, but what's the fear that keeps you giving up that much power, that it's not even close to 50-50? What are you most afraid of?
To say something back, like she told me the other day. She said something to me, why don't you say something to me? She's like, I want to hear you tell me, hey, no, we're going to do this. Or, hey, tell me when I'm being mean. Tell me when I'm being an asshole. Tell me, hey, fuck off. And I get nervous to talk like that to her and be like that because I don't want her to get upset.
Right. Get mad at you. We don't want her to leave and don't want to make yourself look bad. Yes, that's true. And on some respects, when someone's not getting that pushback from somebody, they feel like it's a pushover. And so when I can push someone over, so to speak, all of a sudden I have all the power because I know you're afraid of me. And it's very easy for a person to misuse that power, to use that power to get what I want, to keep you in your place, and eventually, potentially, to put you down or just flat out take advantage of you. And so I'm willing to bet that the reason you reached out to someone to cheat is because you were wanting what? Someone to be nice to you?
My communication is not that good. She always says, I wanted to have a deeper level conversation with you. And a lot of times it's hard for me to talk. But I found some stuff on her phone that she was messaging, getting communication from somebody else. And I didn't say nothing, but I started looking at porn. And that turned into me messaging another girl. And she asked me about that, or she caught me with it and then asked me about it. And I don't know if it was alcohol or what, but I don't remember messaging another girl, but it was on my phone. And so I didn't deny it.
Did you call her out for the stuff on her phone that preceded you doing this?
I didn't say nothing to her at first. And then after a little bit, I looked on her phone again and she told me right up, well, this is why I was doing it. And that's when she said she caught your video and says, you know what? I saw Vin's thing and he called me out and called me all my bullshit. So here it is. This is why I'm doing it. I'm not blaming it on you. All these times I was blaming on you, but I'm taking accountability for it. And so she's like, I did this because of this. And it was all for the wrong reasons. And I am sorry. And now our thing is she wants me to take accountability, which I'm trying to, and saying, I was doing it because the stuff I found and I got angry and then I felt like I wasn't wanted. I felt insecure. And that's our thing right now. She wants me to explain more because a lot of times I have lied and everything that's came out is she's found it and nothing that I've came out and said it to her.
Yeah. At the root of all of this, Peter, at the root of all of this is you're terrified of those voices inside you. That is what is driving everything. That is what is causing you to, it's your fear of standing up, speaking your truth, let the chips fall where they will. And it's the fear of going through divorce and fear of splitting up the kids and fear of all that stuff and what the kids might think of you. But especially it's those fear of those voices inside. And I often tell people, I especially say it to women, but it's true of men too, as we're seeing right here. You have a superpower when you reach the point where you no longer are afraid of being alone. when you're no longer afraid of those voices. Yeah, you might still fear them, that is to say, but you're not afraid of speaking your truth anyway. The problem right now, the reason you lock up, of course, you were conditioned to believe your voice doesn't fucking matter. And especially if you tell the truth, you're going to get whooped. But the bottom line is you've lived in fear your entire life. Is it reasonable to say that you've never had a relationship in your entire life where the power distribution was like equal?
No.
Right.
My last girlfriend she pretty much, and I just got sick of it. She pretty much was, this is what we're doing. And it was not really a choice. And then she ended up passing away. And about a month or two or a little bit later, I ended up meeting my wife, and we started, and that's a whole different thing because I was hiding it because I was afraid. I didn't want anybody to think bad of me.
Right.
That I was talking to another girl already.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What is it to think of the notion that your parents taught you that you're not good enough? What does that make you? And that has infected so many things. And that, I mean, every single one of your sentences basically that you've started today, not every single one, but a lot of them, it's like, oh, I'm not good at communicating. I'm not good at that. And sort of, you're pretty good at beating yourself up. You're pretty good at finding the flaws in yourself or saying how you did shit wrong and so on and so forth. And I guess what I'm wondering is, what do you feel at the notion that your parents taught you that you aren't good enough, at the notion that your parents taught you to live in fear, yet you tell me your 9-year-old couldn't possibly do anything on God's green earth that could make her believe. She couldn't do anything that would make her believe that she's bad. There's nothing that would justify a child thinking about that about themselves. So what does it make you feel to think that your parents taught you that about yourself?
It pisses me off. I've tried to flush it out and write him letters and stuff. And I mean, I've told my dad about his drinking and how he was with his drinking and throwing us in a corner and asking us, well, you don't love me no more. You want to be with your mom? Here's a knife. You might as well kill me. And me and my twin brother, when we were living with him, and he apologized for it and said he was sorry that he was, I guess, in a bad spot.
And did that sorry satisfy it for you? Was there relief that came with that? Or what did you feel when he said he was sorry?
I'm still pissed off because I wanted more.
What did you want more? What did you want?
For him to say more than just sorry, explain the reasons, what was he feeling then? And why did he have to do that to us when we're that age? And
what would be the one sentence you would most want to hear in that situation? I mean, I'm sure there's more than one sentence, but what would be the biggest one you would most want to hear from your dad in that situation? Or if you were to go back to him, what would be the one sentence you'd most want to hear that would have the most healing power for you?
That I fucked up and I shouldn't have treated you guys like that.
How is that different from what he did say?
I guess just whenever he did say sorry, it just seemed like it was more of a forced type of thing.
There it is. And so let me ask you that. What is it that keeps you from going back to your father? You've gone to him once, so obviously you felt strong enough to do it. What keeps you from going back and saying, you know what, Dad, that actually wasn't enough for me? And I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just curious, what keeps you from doing it? Obviously, you were comfortable enough to do it once.
That it's going to be the same thing.
And what if you were to say to him then in that situation, and that's just the same thing, Dad. I need to feel like you actually care, like you actually feel and are owning. Well, what do you want me to say? I said, I'm sorry. Yeah, how about you fucked up and you shouldn't have done that? Let me ask you this. What would hurt more? Which hurts more, not having it now or you going to him again and him repeating the same thing and not giving you that ownership later?
Because him repeating the same thing.
And why is that?
But just kind of afraid that he's going to say the same thing and then pretty much make me feel like I'm just over exaggerating about it. And
right. Because
suck it up now. Well,
and his not taking action, his not really owning it is his confirming again, you're not important enough to get past my fears. He's afraid that he'll look like the bad guy. He's afraid that you'll be mad at him. So he's protecting himself at the expense of you. He's getting the quick, dirty, quick and easy apology, the $5 apology for the $5,000 crime. He doesn't want to own anymore because he's afraid of how he'll look. He'll have to admit maybe he's a bad dad, and so at the result, the underlying message is you're not important enough. So if you go to him again and he does the same thing, he is confirming the message that you've gotten the whole time. You're not important enough for him to change. You're not important enough for him to own his shit. And it's hard to hear such a thing a second time, especially when it's confirming all the messages you've gotten your entire life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now what about your mom? What's the single biggest thing you most want to say to your mom that you haven't said?
I guess it's kind of like the same thing that I hear everybody say, well, I don't want to put all the stuff on her, but she got us out of the situation. Mm-hmm. She divorced my dad.
Sure.
But she was going through her shit. And
okay, you've just made about 5 different fucking excuses for her, yet you haven't told me what you really feel.
I feel like she should have taken time and gave us kids attention and
give me a feeling word. Because when I asked you how it feels with dad, you said pisses me off. Came right out of your mouth. How do you feel towards your mom?
It pisses me off too that she didn't.
What do you hate her for most? What are you most angry at mom for? I mean, supposedly she's the hero. She got you out of there, but you're pissed off. I want to know what you're most pissed off at your mom for, above all else, in one sentence or less. What does it boil down to?
For putting us in situations that we shouldn't have been, with bouncing us around from house to house and telling us pretty much, I guess, making us a therapist, telling us about my dad and what he did and all the bullshit, and on top of drinking while we're kids and having all these parties at the house and them getting drunk, us having to take care of my mom when she's drinking and who in your opinion, and there's no right or wrong answer, who in your opinion committed the greater crime against you, your mother or your father? If I forced you to pick one and I wouldn't let you say 50-50, who committed the greater crime from your perspective? Who hurt you more? I guess I'd have to say my mom. We got a choice to who we can live with, my mom or my dad, and my twin brother and I wanted to stay with my dad because we didn't want him to be alone. But yet my mom didn't tell us, hey, you know what, come just stay with me so I can pretty much take care of you guys while all this shit's going through, and don't tell us about your problems.
Wow.
But comfort us and treat us like a kid.
Wow.
Because there was so much bullshit growing up with fighting and yelling and drinking and
right.
Shit like that.
And so is it safe to say, here's what I want you to do for your homework and your own work on yourself. I want you, and if you have paper and pen in front of you, I want you to write it down. If you have your phone, I want you to take note in your phone. I want you to make a bullet point list of every single thing you have never said to your mother about her character, about how her as a parent, her as a mother, her as a wife, her as a woman, her as a human, everything you can possibly think of that you've never said to her before. You don't ever have to give it to her. I just want you to fucking write it down. And then I want you to make a list of every single thing that you feel towards your mother that you've never told to your mother. As ugly and as brutal or whatever as you can possibly get. Because the bottom line is you've been holding in your real feelings because you were conditioned. If the adult is dumping all their feelings onto the child is being conditioned to believe your feelings don't matter. Your wants, your needs don't matter. It's not just about the beatings you got. It's the underlying message that your fucking feelings, wants, needs don't matter. So here you walk into a fucking marriage and you've been conditioned to believe your wants, needs, feelings don't matter. And you are holding desperately on to someone who you need to confirm your worth. Because if she leaves, you're going to be alone. That means the second thing you need to be working on in your own journaling and in your own self-work and in your letter writing is you need to be looking at the fear. You need to journal out and write down all the things that happen inside of you that you are most afraid of when you are alone. In the divorcing process, if you were to divorce, because this is what you're afraid of. And so you've got to face that fear. And the way we face the fear is by writing down everything I were to fear if we were to separate, if we were to divorce. The effect on the kids, what the kids might think of me, the fears regarding the kids, the fears regarding money, then the fears regarding when I'm alone, all this shit, because it's all those fears that are jumbled up into like this cancer inside of you. It's all these fears that are keeping you from standing up for yourself. Let me ask you this, above all else, if you were to stand up for yourself to your wife, last question, if you were to begin to stand up for yourself more and more to your wife, what is the one sentence that she could say to you or think about you that would hurt the very most? What's the one sentence you most fear?
Fuck you, I'm done.
Fuck you, I'm done. That's right. And because you live in fear of fuck you, I'm done, as long as you live in fear of fuck you, I'm done, you will never stand up and speak your truth. You have to be willing to lose her or you are neutered and you will not speak your truth and you will not stand up and she will fucking own you. And I'm not saying that to humiliate you like a guy thing, oh, you're a bitch or something. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying
right.
you lose your own sense of self. You lose your own sense of power. And so what we have to do, and you're right to your own voice. Your voice got stolen when you were a child, and she still has your voice, or your parents still own your voice, really. And until you no longer fear that. So that's why we have to face these fears. All right. Peter, I'm going to let you go now. And when we come back, we are going to hear from Tammi Sue. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you've heard the podcast. You've listened to other people's issues. Maybe you've studied hundreds of Sven's TikTok videos. Time to stop lurking, face your fears, and focus directly on the one person in your life who can benefit the most from Sven's experience and insight. Now, that would be you. Just go to badasscounseling.com and order Sven's book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. Or check out his many video courses. Sven found a way to help himself out of a 12 years depression. It worked for him, and it can work for you too. Check out badasscounseling.com today.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back. I have just finished talking with Peter, the husband, and we are just about to hear from Tammi Sue, the wife, Peter's wife. And Rob, will you go ahead and tell us about Tammi Sue?
Certainly, Sven. Tammi Sue wrote and said, the thing I am most struggling with is trust, finding it in myself to give any more trust to Peter. I can't understand how I am supposed to believe anything about what is going on in our life at this present time. I don't trust that he will be open, honest, or step up for himself. I don't like how unbalanced our relationship has been since day one, and don't trust that moving forward, anything would be any different.
Tammi Sue, thanks for coming on to the show.
Hi, how are you today?
Great. It's good to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on. So I've had a chance to talk with Peter, and now I want to hear from you. And I would just want to hear it to start. When I read your paragraph, when our producers submitted your paragraph to me, as well as Peter's paragraph to me, I found myself wondering what's really going on here. You're both, you're having problems with trust with him. He's having fear of opening up and so on and so forth. But what's going on? Has there been, I'm just curious, just so we can sort of check some boxes, either get it out of the way or just know that it's there. Has there been abuse in the relationship, or has there been cheating, or has there been like financial, like gambled away the family money? Has there been any stuff in your past?
I guess what is most recently is, I'd say in the past 2 years, it feels like things need to drastically change because I don't want to keep repeating this loop for the rest of my life. And I'm just over the toxic crap that we've had. And it's double-sided from day one. Like, I just feel like it's time to grow up together or grow apart separately.
And when you say it's double-sided, what is the toxicity from him and what is the toxicity from you? If you were to sum it up in one sentence for each person, what is the toxicity?
I'd say both ways is definitely lying and cheating.
Lying and cheating. Okay. And by cheating, I presume you mean marital infidelity?
Yes.
I see. Both ways and lying. So you've lied to him as well and cheated on him. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And when you have lied, what has been the general nature of your lies, or what generally is the reason that you will lie in your relationship?
So what I've lied about has definitely just been about, like, there was a guy that I talked to for quite a while, off and on, for like years of our relationship, off and on. And obviously I lied about that in order to keep that under wraps.
And the guy that you talked to off and on for years throughout your relationship, did you guys ever have an affair more than just the talking and the sort of the emotional affair? Did you ever have any sort, did it ever consummate physically?
No.
Okay. And then, so when you say you cheated on him, you are referring solely to those conversations that you had with that man.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's the recent stuff that we're going on. We have in the past, I physically had an affair.
Okay. So
years ago.
Okay. So you've had an emotional affair recently and a sexual affair previously.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Appreciate that. And so then if you were to sum up your beef with him, with your husband, Peter, in one sentence or less, what ultimately is your beef with him?
How this relationship has forever felt like roommates or friends with benefits under a roof.
Okay. The relationship feels like roommates or friends with benefits. But that doesn't tell me what your beef with him is. That's your problem with the relationship itself.
Lack of conversation. I mean, just like I feel all the things that are important to me are impossible to have, I guess. Like,
and what are you referring to specifically? What's important to you that is impossible?
Communicating about things like that. You wouldn't talk to Joe Blow at the grocery store, you know.
Give me an example.
One thing that has happened is we have been talking about getting a pool, and there's been things going back and forth with it. And I know because of the girl I knew before we had met that he had had a child drowned in a pool, like at a family member. And like, if it wouldn't be for me knowing that, he would never say these things, like just like deep things that are important, you know. And
so he doesn't go deep or talk about things that for you are considered important. And I personally, in my own personal preference, those are important to me too. So I get it. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, what do you think the reason is that he doesn't do it? I mean, for you, it's probably sounds like it's second nature. What do you think the reason is that he doesn't do it?
Well, he said that he just is always scared of any reaction, scared of, I mean, maybe not that example in particular, but scared of like repercussions to coming out with any of his truth or any of those things that aren't as fun to talk about.
Has he ever experienced repercussions from you?
Yes. Yeah.
So would it be reasonable to assume then that he experienced repercussions before you came along, maybe in his home growing up, but then with you, there's been sort of a reinforcement, playing over again of those repercussions. So he's got fear. What do you think your biggest fear is in your relationship with him? What's your single biggest fear?
That we are completely toxic for each other, no matter what.
All right. And what is the single biggest, apart from the cheating and the lying? Okay, you've both done that. That doesn't necessarily wipe it all away, and you're both allowed to have your feelings regarding those, to be sure. But I'm asking a different question. What do you think the greatest toxicity, apart from the cheating and lying in those situations with those men, what is the greatest ongoing toxicity that you bring to this relationship? What's your share of fucking up this relationship, apart from the lying and cheating?
So as a whole, all of it, man, I have took the role of, him, everything. He likes me to take care of all the things. I have been the one in control of, everything from what we buy to all of it. I've carried all of that.
But that doesn't necessarily answer the question. The question is, what is the toxic that you bring to the relationship?
It ties in with the cheating. Like, for years, it's been insecurity so much that I need like others' attention as well. That kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
No, that's great. So my insecurity has caused me to want other attention. Did I hear you correctly on that?
Yes.
And just out of curiosity, where does that insecurity come from? What is the origin of your being so insecure?
See, and this is where I have been so grateful that I stumbled across your book and your podcast, because for years, for us, I was like, well, screw you. You made me feel like this. So I'm not doing this because of anything because of me. I'm doing this because of what you did. And it took digging into this. And I think it goes way back to when I was very, very young. I lost my virginity way too young. And I think I have been pretty messed up in the head as far as sex and relationships go my whole life.
You bring in your virginity, lost your virginity way too young. Well, how old are you when you lost your virginity?
12. And he was, I don't know, between 30 and 40 years old.
Oh, statutory rape right there. Wow. Was he ever convicted? Did anything ever become of it? Did you ever say anything? Were you ashamed of it? I'm just curious.
So he was arrested and let go for whatever thing. And then the warrant went out and it was a whole thing. Me and my mom would see him around town and call it in, but he was never nothing ever came of it.
And in your brain, apart from what the law says, in your brain, did you experience it as rape as a 12-year-old?
No.
What did you experience it as? I mean, your 12-year-old brain at the time?
Love.
Okay.
We were together. We were in a relationship for a year before sex started. So
Gotcha. So a 30-year-old man was in a relationship with a 12-year-old child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're a 12-year-old child, it can feel that way. I actually totally get what you're saying there. I mean, obviously now as an adult, you see it differently, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
right, of course. Okay, let me ask you, though. I asked you where your insecurity came from. You mentioned that and insecurities presumably surrounding sex and so forth, but I'm just curious, did your insecurities, is that the origin of your insecurities, or do your insecurities, let me ask you actually this, what is the form that your insecurities take? And that is to say, what is that sort of tormenting voice inside of you? What does it say?
You're not enough and you can't. I mean, if you want to even be relatively enough, I don't know. It's just out of reach.
Okay. You're not enough and it's just out of reach. But when you were a kid, you guaranteed you didn't have those words. You probably had more like kid words, right? Those are sort of adult, that's an adult sentence. What would have been the sentence you thought about yourself as a kid?
I'm not normal. You're not normal. You're not normal.
I'm not normal. And presumably, normal is good, and you ain't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to ask, where'd you get the message you're not normal?
Well, it was after that whole thing. That is when everything kind of upgraded for me. You know, Dad didn't want to look at me anymore. And Mom was pissed. And it changed everything.
Wait. Mom was normal. Wait, Mom was pissed at you?
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, I'm going to repeat back what I think I've heard, and I want you to correct me because I just want to make sure I have it correct. Okay? I want to understand. You got raped. You thought it was a relationship. Understandable. No judgment. Okay. Your parents found out. Your parents reported the man to the police, and then all the legal shit went down. Both your parents reported it to the police. Is that correct? Or one or both? Yep. Okay. So I see. So your parents acknowledge that a crime was committed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reported it to the police, right?
Yeah.
Right. So they're acknowledging, but they're not acknowledging you commit a crime. Nobody came after you. Nobody arrested you. No. They were reporting him because he had committed a crime against you. Your parents' actions determine that. They say that, right? Obviously, they thought he committed a crime. And then after the fact, your mother's mad at you, and your dad can't look at you. He is shunning you. You are dirty or disgusting. What did you feel from Dad? What would have been the word that you felt in him not being able to look or not wanting to look at you?
Just definitely, I don't know, put off
What did it make you feel? Give me a feeling. Now. Unwanted. And did it make you feel anything about yourself? Apart from unwanted, was there a judgment statement like, oh, you're too skinny, you're too fat, or I'm no good, or I'm stupid, or I'm a whore, or anything. What was the message you were getting from Dad? Yes, I don't want you, but why? What was the why in your head?
I just think I was just damaged now. No going back. You're damaged. And
did you say I was the image now, or I was damaged now?
Damaged.
So he saw you as damaged goods, and above all else, Mom was pissed at you for, in one sentence or less, what?
Being a whore.
So, just out of curiosity, how much were your parents, well, first of all, let me ask this, size of the town or city that you lived in, approximately?
Tiny. Everybody knew.
And is it reasonable to assume, you live in this tiny town, is it reasonable to assume that your parents were concerned about, even prior to that happening, your parents were concerned about image?
Absolutely.
So you damaged their image.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, though, if they were concerned about image, they weren't just concerned about image when you were 12 years old. They had been concerned about image your whole life. So is it, unless they underwent some massive transformation of character, so is it reasonable to assume you had felt pressure your whole life to be a good girl, to don't let us down, to look good, to keep up appearances, something along those lines?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do that, what would happen?
Well, I didn't after that.
No. I mean before that.
Okay.
At 10 or at 7.
Was, guilt and
what would they say?
Grounded.
Guilt and punishment. What would be something? And were there words that accompanied it? Were there messages that you got about yourself?
Yeah. What will people think if you portray this or act like this? X, Y, and Z will happen. That kind of thing. And
so, was there any sort of? We determined after you were raped, we determined that Mom basically thought you were a whore and Dad thought you were damaged. So you got an image, even though Mom may have never said whore and Dad may have never said damaged, you got that message. That's how you felt as a result of their actions. So I'm wondering, how did you feel before the rape ever happened, back when you were 8 or 6? How did you feel about yourself as a result of their actions? Well, we know it wasn't damaged in whore because those would come later. What was the message you got about yourself prior to that?
Just to be self-aware and do your damnedest to fit in.
And if you didn't, were there any repeated messages, adjectives that described you that you felt you were when you didn't fit in? Was there a recurring theme like you're stupid, or you're too tall, or oh, you think you're so fucking smart, or were there any messages you got about yourself growing up that you can recall thinking about yourself as a result of sort of being parented this way?
Yeah, it was, you'll carry it with you. Whatever you create now will be carried with you forever. And that you'll never fit in anywhere.
Okay. So what will people think? And so you felt pressure to perform. So is it reasonable to assume? Oh, well, actually, let me ask you this. Did you ever feel like you got all the love and attention that you wanted from your parents? Positive attention, not the kind where you're getting scolded. That's attention, but it's negative attention. Did you ever feel growing up, did you feel like you got your love needs met from your parents?
Prior to that, more so, but still, Dad was the more like reclusive, sidelines kind of guy. And Mom had her own issues.
Just out of curiosity, what was the power distribution in your parents' relationship with each other? Who had what percent of the power?
Mom had 100, Dad had 0.
Why did Dad have 0% of the power?
Because he just continues to eat shit and not say a word about it.
And what do you think he's most afraid of? What power does she have over him? What is he really afraid of?
I would assume being alone. I don't know, being left.
So is it reasonable?
Or his dad, probably money.
Sure. So money and being alone. And as a result, he has 0% of the power. So is it reasonable to assume that you have married your dad?
Yes. And I am very much aware of that. And that has definitely been a realization.
And so that would seem to imply then that the power imbalance is roughly the same in you and your husband as it was in your parents. You have the power, he doesn't. And what would you say is the biggest fear driving him that causes him to give up all his power or causes him to not stand up for himself? What do you think the biggest thing is that he's most afraid of?
I think it's intertwined with two, kind of being alone and repeating his parents' pattern.
Okay. And if he were alone, what do you think the message is that would rise up inside of him about himself?
That he isn't good enough and can't make anything of his life.
Okay. Do you fear being alone? Or do you actually get excited at the thought because then you could get new attention?
No, I was afraid of being alone for a very, very long time. It was like scary to even put your eggs in a one basket kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not afraid of being alone anymore.
Why?
But
why?
I feel like I still have a lot to go work on, but I feel like I've let that wave hit enough now that I've at least seen the worst of what I've been running from my entire life.
And so you're wanting attention. What is it so much, this desire for deeper conversation, communication? Why does that help you in the desire for attention? What need, or other than attention, does that meet? Because you said the issue is communication and him not opening up and so forth. He's always scared of repercussions. What need would it fill inside of you if he did open up? What?
I don't even know. It's just, he has no value, and I feel like he has no value in himself to where he doesn't feel like he can talk about anything or anything. And I don't know how to build that up.
Ultimately you can't. In the end, he has to face his fears of opening up and have the courage to begin to stand up and to face all those fears. And I've given him a few things he can do in the notion of facing the fears, being alone, fears regarding the kids, fears of going through a divorce, fears of the money, and fears of your backlash if he does stand up for himself. What do you think the grand fear is operating inside of you in this whole equation? What is your single greatest fear in this whole equation of your relationship?
That my gut feeling is correct.
And what is your gut feeling?
That he will never feel safe or comfortable to come out of his shell with me.
And if that be true, then what?
Then I think it's time to let it go. Like, heal ourselves and let him find somebody that he can find value and respect for himself.
Well, wait a minute. You just stated it in the passive. Let him find somebody. You didn't say, and you said let it go and so on and so forth. If he is not opening up to you, what will you need to do for you?
What I've been doing, I don't know if it's the right thing or not, but I've been putting distance between us to where it's like, okay, I'm not going to try to get you to understand anything that I'm trying to say. Just let it be, and just let it roll whatever way it's going. That makes sense.
Let me ask you this. Has there been while he hasn't changed enough to fully keep you in the relationship yet, have you witnessed any progress in his work? Have you witnessed any change whatsoever in him? Any improvement?
He's talked about his feelings more, which is huge. That's massive. Even just, I heard this and I thought about this and it made me feel something. That is something we have he's never talked like that.
How does that feel? How did it feel when he did that?
It's like an aha moment, want to give a high five, there you go, do that more.
But give me a feeling word.
To have your own.
Right, and you want to encourage him and so on and so forth. That's great. But how did it feel? Give me a feeling word for how you felt. You got what you wanted, him opening up and sharing real feelings. How did that feel? Give me a feeling word for how you felt.
Proud.
And so what did that make you feel towards him besides proud? What did it make you feel towards him or regarding yourself or anything? Give me another word.
I don't know. Encouraged.
All right.
Felt encouraging.
Encourage and encouraging regarding as in sort of there's hope for the relationship sort of thing?
Just that he is willing to step up and say something, even if it's, oh, I felt this about that, instead of not saying anything. And then 2 days later, well, I got quiet because I was upset about this kind of thing.
Understood. And it is a process. Changing lifelong patterns is a process. But when you say you feel encouraged, you are presumably saying, I feel encouraged. It encourages me to think that maybe there's hope for the relationship.
Yeah, and for him to value himself.
Okay, so which is it more? If I made you pick between those two, what percentage is it him valuing himself, and what percentage is it hope for the relationship?
I'd say 60% for us and 40% for himself.
I see. So if it's 60%, and no doubt if he felt it for himself, that would impact the relationship too. But you saying that encourages you regarding the relationship, that is saying you want the relationship.
Yeah.
You do. Obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be encouraging. It'd be fucking depressing. Like, Christ, now he's changing. Now I got to stay. But you didn't say that. Right. So you want the relationship. And what is the single biggest thing that you need to fucking change about you? What is the single biggest thing that you need to change? You've articulated what he needs to change. I need to know what you need to change.
I just feel like I just need to completely let go and stop wanting to, read this book or check this out or whatever about the things I'm doing, and just let him handle his own journey.
And what would that feel like, to let go and stop sort of, sharing your stuff, or stop basically trying to change him or what have you, or control his journey? What would that letting go feel like? Really
good. And really, really good.
And so what is the fear of letting go? If I let go, what do you fear the most?
I really don't have fear. It's just in situations like that, because we've talked about this a lot with things letting go, because I've told him, I feel like we are my parents' marriage. I don't want that. I don't want my kids to look at me someday and be like, damn, how did they make it this long, Mm-hmm. And
what's the fear in letting
really
go?
It's hard for him to not still come to me for everything.
Understood. But I asked the question, what do you fear in letting go? You said, I don't fear anything. If you did fear something in letting go, because if you didn't fear anything, you'd fucking do it. Boom, boom, boom. What is the fear in letting go?
That he will just not do anything and stay right where it's at.
Right. He won't do anything. And so then if he didn't do anything, that would then confirm for you something you don't want to face. And that is that it seems to me you don't want to be in this relationship. I'm with a guy who doesn't want to change because he's only changed when I've sort of pushed him to do it. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you went hands off, it's almost like, let's go hands off and let's see what he does. And if he does nothing, then I get my answer. And I think you may be scared of the answer. So why would you be so scared of ending the relationship?
I do love him. He is a great guy.
What would you be as scared of in ending the relationship?
Failing
Failing
our marriage.
And just out of curiosity, if you were to fail the marriage, what is the one sentence you most fear someone thinking about you or saying to you? If you, quote unquote, if the marriage ended and you felt like you'd failed, what is the one sentence, in one sentence or less, you most fear someone thinking about you or saying to you? What would hurt the very most to hear or to know someone is thinking about you?
You're not capable of maintaining a healthy relationship.
If someone were to say or think you're not capable, or if they were to say or think, see, I told you so, which would hurt more? And maybe the other one wouldn't hurt at all. I'm just asking a question.
Probably I told you so.
What did they tell you? I told you so what? That you're a what?
You'd fail.
That you'd fail. If that's the one sentence, I told you so, I told you you'd fail. If that's the one sentence that would hurt the very most if you failed, who is the one person who would be most likely to say it or think it?
My mom.
So that you fear failing, you fear ending the relationship because if you end it, then you would have failed. And you fear that failing because you can hear your mom's voice, whether she says it or not. There's a chance that she might be thinking, I told you so, you're a fucking failure. You failed, I told you so. You fear your mom thinking that, and that's what keeps you from letting go. See, you said, I'd let go, but I fear the relationship failing, and I don't want it to fail because I would hate to hear my mother was thinking, see, I told you so, you're a failure. So in other words, what you're afraid of in letting go is you're afraid of your mom. So to some degree, your mom still fucking owns you.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Not good. Not good at all.
Not good, but give me an actual feeling word. Because anger can feel not good. Sad can feel not good.
Yeah, pissed. Definitely pissed.
You'd be pissed at her, you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because?
Because she's still in my head.
What is it, above all else, that you're still wanting from your mother? If you're to be really honest, what are you still wanting?
Her to accept any of me or my choices.
And if she accepted you, then what?
Then I guess it's like a weight. Lifted off one thing out of my head that's been in there for a long time.
Since when, roughly?
I say around 11, 12.
Okay.
10,
weight,
11, 12.
and if you had that weight lifted out of your head or off your back, then what?
Then don't worry about her opinion and judgment on choices I make.
Right. And so then what? If you're not worried about her opinion and judgment, then what?
Think for myself. I don't know.
Think for yourself. How would it feel to no longer worry about her judgment?
Freeing. Very freeing. I feel like I've spent a good amount of time trying to piss off her views and her guidelines.
So you're nice because she has not given you the approval and the acceptance you want. You've deliberately done the opposite of what she would want. You've deliberately done these things as a fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, right? Because you're still angry because she's not giving you what you want. So much of your life at whatever age you are is a living 31 is a living reaction to your mom. That you are still in an ongoing, lifelong battle with your mom. You're wanting her attention, her approval, her acceptance. She's not giving it. And you're mad. And so you're doing these things. You're living a life. So your mom is in your head. Your mom is fundamentally in your marriage.
Yeah.
Right. And it's reasonable to assume your husband's family is still inside of your marriage as well. But in your case, your fear of what your mom might think of you. And so my question is, at what point in life do you accept the pattern that you are never going to get your needs met by your mom? What would it take for you to finally realize, I'm never going to get my needs met by her?
I don't know. I recently have had a talk with her, and it ended up, backfiring and a slap in my face again. And And so I don't know.
Well, so clearly your pain hasn't gotten bad enough. You're still wanting something from her. You still believe it can happen, and your pain hasn't gotten bad enough. One final question for you, and it's a total out of left field, makes no fucking sense in this context, but I'm just curious. What % do you love you? Apart from mom's voices, dad's voices, oh, you're damaged, mom says you're a whore, apart from your husband's voice, apart from everybody's fucking voices, what % do you love you?
Probably about 50%.
50%. And the 50% that you don't love is fundamentally what? What is the single most unlovable thing about you?
Like, I don't know.
What?
I'm not normal in the head.
Not normal in the head. And this goes back to 11 or 12 years old and the rape and all that?
Yeah.
I see. So because someone violated you and committed a crime against you, and because you were raped before they committed that crime against you, and I'm saying your parents committed the crime in shunning their daughter and teaching her self-loathing based on a crime that was committed against her. Multiple crimes were committed against you. And because of that, you've been taught to basically hate yourself. Has it occurred to you, just out of curiosity, forgive me for stating the obvious, has it occurred to you that when you were 11 or 12 years old, and you're crying right now, what are you feeling? Give me a feeling word. What are you feeling right now?
Frustrated.
No, come on. What are you feeling? Frustrated doesn't generally bring tears. What are you feeling right now? Hurt?
Hurt.
Right. Fundamentally hurt by what?
That all of this still is carried by me now.
That's right. Has it occurred to you that when you were taught you were not normal, has it occurred to you that you were perfect? That there was nothing wrong with you? Has it occurred to you it was a bullshit message? let me ask you this. You have children. What percent likelihood is it that, say, your 9-year-old is unlovable, has half of them that is unlovable?
0%.
What about your
100%
12-year-old?
lovable.
Surely your 12-year-old is half unlovable, right?
No.
What could a 12-year-old possibly do that would cause them to be half unlovable? What could a child possibly do? I'm curious.
Nothing.
But doesn't that then mean, Tammi Sue, that there was nothing you could have done that made you innately unlovable?
Yeah.
So the problem isn't that you were unlovable. The problem is that your parents stopped giving you love. And you were taught to believe there must be something wrong with you. That's why you're not getting love. But in fact, something was wrong with them. They were fucked up, shitty parents. I'm sorry, you don't teach a child who has been raped that she is damaged and she's a whore. That's fucking horrible, horrible parenting. Indisputable. Rob, if I am wrong, tell me right now that I am wrong. Please, if I am off the fucking mark.
Indisputable was the right answer.
Indisputable. There was not a damn thing wrong with you, and they fucked you over, and fuck them for doing it. I hate them for what they did. You do that to a fucking child? Are you fucking kidding me? And as a result, here you are at 31, 19 years later, hating on yourself. I have no quarter for that. No patience for that. You were fucked over by your own parents. They weren't good parents. And you thought that the reason you weren't getting love was because there was something wrong with you. No, the reason you weren't getting love is because they were shitty parents. Everything gets wiped away. Anything good they might have done got wiped away the second they started blaming you for a crime that was committed against you. And they knew it was a crime. And they blamed a child. Fuck them. I'm going to ask you to come back, if you would, Tammi Sue, after we sort of come back for a little overtime. And I'm going to ask Peter to join us as well. Would you be willing to do that?
Okay.
All right. Rob's going to go ahead and bring the show down, and then we're going to come right back. So thank you, Tammi Sue, for being on the show. On behalf of Tammi Sue, on behalf of Peter, thank you so much for tuning into the Badass Counseling Show. And on behalf of Rob the Rocket sitting next to me, and KC over in the booth, wherever you are tuning in from Canada to South Africa, New Zealand to Mississippi, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.
It's Rob here with a look behind the scenes. It's Badass Overtime, giving you a chance to listen in to Sven's conversation with his guests after the show.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Hi, Sven.
Hey, you're both there. Great.
We're here.
Okay, so let me start with Tammi Sue. I just got done with you. Tammi Sue, what's going on inside of you right now?
A checklist. I need to write down more things to keep journaling and flushing and digging into.
Fair enough. Some of the stuff we talked about. What are you feeling right now? Having had the discussion that we have had, what are you feeling?
To figure out things that I need to dig deeper into.
Mm-hmm. Grateful to figure out things you need to dive deeper into. Fair enough. And what are you feeling regarding the stuff we actually talked about?
Just sad that it's still what I'm dealing with.
That's fair. That's fair. That it's still there, that mom still owns you, their messages still own you, that it caused that shit that they totally fucked you over on is causing you to only love yourself 50% right now. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I'm encouraged that it is 50%, but I'm also hateful at your parents that it's only 50%, because it could be 0%. So the fact that it's 50 is good. in terms of it's not zero, but it's fucking horrible. Okay. I want to ask Peter, what's going on inside of you right now after our talk?
Frustrated that I will say it's hard for me to talk and bring out my feelings all the time, and just pissed.
You're pissed, you said?
Yeah, just pissed and upset that I got these feelings inside me that sometimes it's hard for it to come out, and frustrated because I want to give my wife everything that she deserves.
Okay, so let me ask you, so you're pissed at yourself, right?
At myself and at my parents.
Right. Peter, can I encourage you to do something that you're probably not in the habit of doing?
Yes.
Just give yourself a bit of compassion, man. Seriously. If you can't express your feelings right now or a month from now or whatever, it's okay. It's okay. Because you were raised to believe that your feelings don't matter. You were raised to believe that you don't matter. You were raised that you'd take a whooping no matter basically what the fuck came out of your mouth. You spent your life trying to avoid whoopings, so you shut everything down and you just started being whoever the fuck you had to be to avoid the whooping. Am I correct?
All right.
Right. You've kept the real you shut down the whole fucking time. Give yourself a little bit of compassion. All right? Trust that when it's time, as long as there's no pressure on yourself, when it's time, the feelings will come out. Now, your wife shared with me that you've had a little progress and that you have opened up on a few feelings. Am I right on that, Tammi Sue?
Yep.
Right. Now, the truth is, you wouldn't have opened up unless you felt a little bit comfortable doing so.
All right.
Why do you think you opened up in that moment?
I guess a lot of times I try to maybe at that moment take a big deep breath and just let my words come out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. And Tammi Sue's job is to help you feel comfortable and safe. And your job is to take the deep breath, grab yourself by the nuts, squeeze really hard, and let it out. Right?
Right.
Right. So we don't always measure success by getting there completely. We measure success by increments. On the Sabbath, in Judaism, they often celebrate what's called the small victories. It's a celebration of small victories. You've got to celebrate the small victories, man. Got to celebrate the small victories. With you, Tammi Sue, so that's what you need to be. We've talked about some of the things you need to journal, Peter, and we've talked a bit. You clearly see what you need to journal, Tammi Sue. And we talked about you need to let go of, isn't it really you need to let go of trying to change Peter into what you want him to be?
Yeah.
And is it reasonable to assume that you're trying to change him or giving him this and so on and so forth creates a sort of pressure on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it reasonable to assume, based on what we've just discussed right now, that if he felt less pressure, he might actually be more likely to open up?
Yeah.
Right. When he's ready. When he's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the two things you each told me. Peter, you fear an opening up. Basically, you fear getting hurt. Backlash or her leaving you. He's terrified of you leaving him.
Hurting her.
Or hurting her, right. But you got to be willing to do that. There's got to be room for, I might hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. And there's got to be a willingness to apologize for hurting your feelings. But I have every right to express how I feel and what I think, right? And there can be apologies. Right. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Here's what I was trying to say. And then she needs to be understanding of that. Okay. And her fear at the root of it is her own insecurities. That's what drove the need for attention and so on and so forth. So the one thing that she's really looking, well, the reason she's wanted you to change is to get attention and listening from you and you opening up, because that's partly how she feels loved, is when you trust her and you open up to her. That connects her to you, makes her feel like she fucking matters. And if there's one message she's gotten her entire life, that she doesn't matter and that she's crappy. So you each have things now that you need to work on in your own journaling. Let me ask you each one question. You each get to answer it however you want. What is the one question you have for me. You each get a question. It can be anything. You get one last question of me.
How do I go about starting my deep conversations with my wife and starting those conversations to where it's an ongoing thing? Because I do love talking to her, and whenever I do get that deep breath going, it's a wonderful thing. It feels good.
Yeah.
And then at the next moment we try to do it again, I'm always mute.
What was that last part? And the next moment, what?
I turn mute. Like
Right.
I just silent.
Right. Okay. You have already answered your own question. You asked the question, how do I start having those conversations? You've already started. You did it without me. You did it all by yourself. Just do that again. And the truth is, for every one success, you're going to have 5 or 10 times where you go mute. But guess what? That's still one success out of 10 mutes, whereas in the past, it was 1,000 mutes and no successes. So just keep doing it. That's all there is to it. And you've got to accept you're not going to find your words every time, or you're not going to feel safe every time. That's okay. Have some compassion with yourself, Peter. It's okay. You literally already have found your own answer. You created your answer by doing it the first time. Now, when you're ready, just do it the second time. So actually, let's just take it for a spin right now. What are you feeling right now towards your wife? It can be anything. There's no pat answer. What are you feeling towards your wife? Be honest.
Love, sad for her and stuff that she's dealing with and dealing with me. Compassion towards her.
And okay, Tammi Sue, how does it feel when he says that? There's no right or wrong answer. How does it feel?
Grateful for his love. And like, I just wish we could get this shit right.
You're getting it right. You can't, you're not going to fucking hit a grand slam home run every fucking time up to the plate. Nobody does. You're going to strike out. You're both going to strike out. And it's the willingness to step back up to the plate and swing away again. All right. So then I want to shift it over to you, Tammi Sue. What is your one question that you have for me?
Can it be a little bit off topic?
It can be any damn thing you want.
Okay, so I have been flipped back and forth with antidepressants, and I know you don't go into that so much. Would, in your opinion, I know you're not a doctor or anything, is that something you continue, or should I be going to like a therapist and I've never done any of that. I've just been prescribed by like a doctor that's like, what do you want? Here you go kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you
I don't know that I do feel totally balanced sometimes. And I think that's part of our issues.
And so let me ask you this. And I know it's kind of a strange question, but let me ask you this. What feels right for you to do next?
Get off.
All right. And then what?
See what I feel and handle from there, journal all of it and keep a close feeling on everything and try that out.
Why not? Would you give yourself permission to go back to it if you did go off of it?
Yeah.
And maybe do so gradually. Maybe.
Yeah. With the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah. That was Rob's idea. He just threw that over to me. It was a good one. So if that's what feels right, there's nothing wrong with trying that. And as long as you're open to going right back if you need to. If that's what feels right, do it. Be committed to your flushing out. And what is the single biggest thing that would make you feel if you were to go off it for a while? Why is it you want it? What is it you're wanting to feel or experience?
Life without it. Because I've been on
and what would
on antidepressants forever.
And why do you want that? What is it about? What would it feel like to not be on it? Give me a feeling word.
I don't know. Freeing to find out, like if it's necessary. How much of what is me.
Right. And that's just it. See, if you've been taught that you're unlovable, if you've been taught that you're a whore and that you're damaged, That's going to cause you to hate yourself. That's going to cause you to feel sad and so on and so forth. Yet none of those were your original voice. You didn't come out of the womb hating yourself. And so all those voices have been in there, and no doubt that drug has helped you at least offset that a bit. And you know what? You've kind of been that drug for Peter, offsetting the message inside of him. And so you're wanting to, part of what you really have to face is, am I actually unlovable? Because I don't think you are. And clearly Peter doesn't think you are. And so you've got to begin to face the truth that there was nothing wrong with you to begin with. Same goes for you, Peter. There was nothing wrong with you. Nothing a 9-year-old could do or a 12-year-old could do that would make them feel about themselves, that would justify them feeling about themselves the way you two were taught to think about yourselves. I want to thank you so much, both of you, for being on the show. You were both open. You were both raw. Yeah. You did great, Peter. Tammi Sue, I loved your insights. Great job. And thank you both so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You betcha. Take care.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform, and is not medical advice.
That's it. Join us for new counseling episodes every Thursday and lightning rounds every Sunday.
Thanks for listening to Badass Overtime. Now go out and slay some demons and have a kick-ass day.